Greetings and welcome, guys, gals, to Non-Binary Pals to episode 385 of the Words About Games podcast, the weekly gaming podcast for Words About Games. I'm your host, Amy K. Alexander, and I'm joined this week by Mr. Vitz Patel, who's below
What's
me
good,
today.
gamers? How are you, Amy?
Not bad. I'm having a good
Uh,
day.
now that we figured out what episode number it is.
Now that we know where we are in space and time,
There you go.
I'm pretty decent. But we're also joined by a very, 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 very special guest this week. It's Sadie.
Hey. Hello.
Hello. How's
Hello.
it going? Welcome to the podcast.
Can you tell that it's been like 2 years since I podcasted? I'm like, what do you say again on a podcast?
How do words?
About games.
Yeah.
What is speaking? I'm good, thank you. I just finished work, and what better way to start my evening than to speak with you lovely people about video games?
Working on video games all day. What better way to relax and unwind than to talk about video games all night?
This is sadly my existence.
That's fine. Moody manages. He does much of the same. Except he just plays Football Manager all the time now. So he's one of those people. How's everybody doing?
We are doing good.
Good.
Yeah. Good is the word I'm going to go with. So far, it's 2024. We've had somehow like 25% of the layoffs we had in 2023 already. We're only like 2 weeks into the year. But yeah, so I'm going with just good.
We're not even back yet. Can you stop with the layoffs? We're doing our special episodes. Oh, the gang's not back together. They're not allowed to do this. It's not fair. To us, it's not fair to us, and nobody else.
Yeah.
Sadie, how's it going?
Things are good. I loved January the 1st for this year. That was good. Had a really great January the 1st, and then I went back to work on January the 2nd, and that's been something. Yeah. But actually, I'm really good, and I'm very excited to just be here. And we get the subject. I don't want to spoil it, obviously, but I'm very excited about this subject and very flattered to be invited to talk about it. It's one that means a lot to me. So yeah, very cool.
Very cool indeed. So,
well, good. I wouldn't worry about spoiling it. People have read the title of the episode.
Okay, we're going to be talking about the downfall of Xbox. It's going to be awesome.
Let's go!
No, I'm joking, and I have to say, just remind me, oh yeah, I work in video games. That's just a joke. It's the first thing that came to my head. I like all systems equally. Please don't fire me, anybody.
Can confirm. Just a joke. The things that come out that will inevitably come out of my mouth on this podcast are not representative of the things that Sadie may or may not believe to be true in her heart.
I think I literally just saw your Xbox logo, and that's unfortunately caused me to say things from my mouth.
Yeah. It's the brightest one. That's not the brightest one, but the PlayStation one does that thing where it like changes like the lights around. Like if I turned all four on, it would be like a beacon, kind of like in that Lord of the Rings film, where they light all of the.
Gondor calls to aid.
Gondor would indeed be calling for aid.
How has no one made that meme? That would be awesome. That'd be so cool.
Because I forget everything I say on a podcast as soon as I hit stop recording it.
Don't worry. And everything I say is nonsense anyway, so we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, no, that's the vibes of the podcast. But no, it's a good week this week. I'm on holiday. GDQ is starting soon. The Canucks are winning, which is nice because they've sucked for like a decade. I've got good video games, and I'm having this nice chat.
I'm interested in what the monkey's paw situation is going to be. So your hockey team starts winning after sucking for a decade. What's on the opposite end to balance out the scale?
Maybe I'll just fall off a bridge or something. I don't know. Yeah, it gets the mood whiplash of this podcast will violently swing.
That escalated very quickly.
I know it's been a minute since you've been here, but it's how we do things around here.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I'll catch up, I'm sure, and I'll make things even worse. Don't worry.
And there you go.
There is no bottom to this barrel. That's what I always say. Hell yeah. Hi. So did you have a good New Year and/or Christmas? Sadie, sorry, me and Vitz have already done this once last week, which is coming out a week later. It's a mess. Moody goes on holiday, screws everything up, and I can say what I like about him because he's not here.
Yeah, maybe it's the downfall of Moody rather than downfall of Xbox. This podcast. So I did. I had a very nice chilled out Christmas, and New Year's was lovely. My main mission over that period was to beat Baldur's Gate 3, and I've not even got close. So, yay!
Congrats.
Yeah. Well, would you like to feel better about that? Because it was somebody else's main mission over Christmas to start Baldur's Gate 3. And they failed that task spectacularly. Isn't that right, Moody? Really is the downfall of Moody. I love it.
I don't know. I'm guessing by the sounds of it, then you guys have talked a fair bit about it. But basically, without spoiling anything, I began the holiday period at the kind of sort of early stages of Act 3. And I thought, well, I'm at the early stages of the final act. I must be near the end. And that is not a good assumption to make with that video game.
Do you have anything to add to that, Vitz?
I mean, that's a statement which is more true than anything else about this game. So I'm in the same boat of so like I don't want to say I rushed through, but we got through the first two acts in a steady pace, and I was like, okay, we're in the lower city, things are happening. We've got to be coming up to the big like crescendo of where the main thrust of the plot is going, and then it's kind of, ooh, what's this thing to do? Ooh, what's this thing to do? Oh wait, this is more involved than I thought it was going to be. Oh wait, how deep does this tunnel go? You want me to go in here? You want me to rescue these people? And oh, it's amazing. I was texting Amy just this morning about some of the adventures that we had and the guilt trips that other party members put me through and all the rest of it. So
I remember now.
Yes.
I was like, wait,
just leave me the hell alone, Will. That's what I'm going to say.
Will. Suck it up, Will.
But no, it's incredible. So I think I just crossed over the 100-hour mark. So yeah, I have been making sure to explore everything. Obviously, I don't think there'll be a person alive who touches everything this game has to offer, kind of thing. But yeah, I'm loving my time with it, and by the sounds of it, you are too, Sadie.
I think it's an amazing game. I unfortunately, and I think it's a bit misleading when you look at your PlayStation like sort of hours that you've put into a game, because I tend to like go from my game and do chores without switching off, which is terrible. But according to PlayStation, I am way above your 100 hours, Vitz, and no better for it by the sounds of it, because it sounds like you've got things that I've not yet found. Yeah, maybe if you invite me to the podcast in 2025, I'll be able to tell you that I've finished Baldur's Gate 3.
There you go. No, I think one of the beauties of this game is everybody's journey is different and just as valid as anybody else's. And it's one of these where, we'll have wildly different story arcs and the way that we take our characters and all the rest of it. And it's such a special game. And it's one of the reasons why we may have voted it a certain thing if that episode is coming out before you see this one or afterwards, or
that one already exists.
Things.
Yeah, we did that before Christmas.
There you go. Time is a flat circle, everybody.
What did we do last week? What was last week's podcast?
That's very. Sorry, I was going to just say that's very sweet of you to say, by the way, about every Baldur's Gate 3 journey is valid, but you haven't seen mine and you don't know, and it's not.
I had one mission in Baldur's, and Vitz knows this because we talk about the game all the time. I had one mission in Baldur's Gate 3. How many demon ladies can you have sex with? Let's find out.
If I had to predict what your mission would have been in that game, that probably would have been my number 3 or 2.
But no, Vitz will text me like, "Oh my god, I just killed." Like there was one a few days ago where you were like, "Oh man, I just killed this character," and I was like, "Who?" What?
Fair, absolutely fair.
That's what I get for playing it at launch and not like Vitz says, not rushing through it, but keeping a steady pace. Other video games exist, and they decided to come out at the same time, and that seemed really
How
like a really
rude of them.
stupid idea. But I spent my holiday playing Yakuza Like a Dragon and Prey.
I think Yakuza Like a Dragon is really cool. And I've only played about 5 or 6 hours of it, but that is my first real Yakuza experience, and
Nice.
that game is pretty cool.
Oh, it's really good. So I was in the same boat. Like I played it for like 10 hours. I'm going to my Xbox. And then I was like, well, I need to play something over Christmas, and the sequel's coming out, and I should probably know what's going on in the sequel before I play the sequel. Let me just finish this game real quick.
Considering the sequel is in an entirely different country, from what I understand, then I think probably something happens in the story.
I mean, no.
We need to figure out why this man is naked on the beach. That's the thrust of it.
I'm into this video game premise.
What if everybody but naked? But yeah, no, I finished that on Christmas Day, weirdly, in a weird timing thing, and then I played Prey, and Vitz and Moody both recommended it independently of each other, based on a very small list of things, and then it was really awesome, and I was doing all the immersive sim things, and I was smashing the window, and I was flushing the toilets. And I was fighting all of the aliens without using the combat as much as possible, because immersive sims are fucking great. But then it was oh, we're gonna lock the station down for story reasons, and you have to go down this linear path for the next 5 or 6 hours. And I got so far down that path, and I went, fuck this. I don't have to keep playing Prey.
You're not the boss of me.
You're not the boss of me. I'm gonna play something else. And then I went back to Persona.
That is a really cool realization, which I think I only really made in my sort of 30s, that I can actually stop playing the video game if I'm not enjoying it.
One of the net positives, the biggest net positives of not being a game reviewer anymore, is being I don't have to finish this. I don't have to finish this thing that I am playing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
With that time, we can dip into the wonders of Lethal Company.
Oh yeah, we played that as well. Have you heard of this one there, Sadie?
Bits and pieces.
Yeah, it wasn't quite what I was expecting, but not in a good way. When I'm standing at that corridor, shouting down it, going, "Hello, are you still alive? Hello." It's a very, very fun game. We need to play that again.
Oh, I'm sure we will do soon. The joys of proxy chat and what happens when you just hear one of your friends scream and then you just go silent. It's okay. What do we do now? Do I leave them there? Do I try and get their stuff?
Oh yeah.
Do I try and fight the monster with my air horn? Is that going to work?
Or when you're running back to the spaceship and you don't know if the rest of your team is dead or not, and they can't answer you because they are in fact dead, but you're just in the spaceship doing the horror game audio log.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. They might
you find yourself narrating to yourself just in case anybody else is listening.
I don't know. Help.
This sounds very intense in a quite disturbing way.
It's not. It's like a pixel art kind of art style. So like the horror isn't like as intense as like Phasmophobia, which is a truly
Okay.
terrifying game. But no, it's more fun than anything. You go in, you pick up a bunch of random stuff, and then a monster will appear at some point. And usually, as I found, it will just drop on Vitz's head right in front of me.
Yeah. Or I'll be bravely running away from a monster and run straight into a landmine. It's one of the two.
That's
But,
a really
Nice
funny
as well.
story too. you were on the other side of the complex, so all we heard was like this very distant sort of like, "Oh god, I see the monster," and then there was a big bang, and we were stood there going, "Do you think he's dead? I think he might be dead."
This game does wonders for accessibility for those who suffer from arachnophobia. So there are spiders in the game, but there is an arachnophobia setting you can toggle, and instead of a spider appearing, it's the word spider, and it still moves in a spider-like fashion. But that'll sort it.
Is that actually going to make things any better for anybody who has arachnophobia?
I mean, at least they tried. it's one of the things.
I have a theory. I'm not arachnophobic, but I've used arachnophobia mods in a couple of games, and like just based on that experience alone, I have a theory that the thing that gets created when you turn arachnophobia mode on is always scarier than a spider.
Even if it's like, we made it cuddly. He said, no, it's 10 times worse. It's 10 times worse. Get it off my screen.
This is why Five Nights at Freddy's is so popular.
Mm-hmm.
Just replace them with clown's faces. That's what I would do.
Spider with a clown's face. Just and a big
There you
red
go.
nose.
Perfect.
And like roller
Speaking of
skates.
arachnophobia settings, Larian, please get on that because my friends want to play BG3, but they are terrified of spiders and it gets quite spidery in places.
There are a lot of spiders in that video game.
Mm.
There really are.
You can turn into one.
Spiders Gate 3.
Yes.
That's what they should call it.
Oh no! All spiders.
Yes.
What are we on? Yeah, that's probably good. All right, should we start the topic of the show? The one and only topic: the roast of Daff and Moody. I mean, wait, what was the real one? Oh yeah, 10 games to know me. So this is a thing that's been going around the social medias for a while, like. And I keep seeing the same people post it, and they always have a different list of games, and I'm like, okay.
That's not how it works.
I don't know if that's how this works.
Call them out, Amy. Call them out.
That phase of my life is over. The only person I'll call out now is Moody, but only when he's not here. Yeah, no, it's 10 games to get to know me, or in this case, us. And we've all picked 10 games, and the premise of that sentence is suitably vague enough that we've probably all picked different games for different reasons. At least judging by like hearing a little bit about everybody's lists, or maybe it's just hearing about my own list.
No, I'm sure there's an element of that there. So these games are especially pendant to us. So whether it's a milestone that happened in our lives when this game came out, or the way this game resonated with us and evoked emotions that we didn't even know that we could achieve at that point in time, and it's the first. It's clear that video games are such an interactive medium, and it's because you can engross yourself in the stories the way that no other medium can, kind of thing. And I think the way I've put my list together is very much in that vein, in terms of these are the games which meant something to me because I felt X, Y, and Z, and these were the things happening in my lifetime at that moment. And yeah, they shaped who I am today.
Yeah, I think I've done that as well. Yeah, mostly.
And wrote 1,000 words for each one.
No, they're only little paragraphs.
I'm joking.
It's like a reminder to talk about things. Like 1,000 words is up here.
Yes.
Can I be fully transparent with your audience? Because I feel like it's only going to be better if I'm honest at the beginning rather than it all come unfolding at the end. But I am sure of about 6 to 7 of my games. And then the 3 remaining, we will work out as we go along.
There we go.
What you've done is, like, because when I find this happens with making video essays as well, where it's like I'll finish it and publish it, and then I'll go, I could have done about this, and I could have talked about this. You've been smart. You've left room for as you're going along to remember something and go, but what about this? Whereas me and Vitz have kind of locked ourselves into it's these games and nothing else, no matter what.
It's definitely that, and not the lack of preparation.
Exactly.
But the beauty of your approach, Sadie, is that you get the opportunity to avoid the situation where I'm going to go in like 4 games time. Oh crap! I've forgotten about this game.
Oh my God.
You just get to do it on the fly and just style it out. I love that.
I forgot about the most important game of them all.
Yes, exactly.
I will 100% steal your forgotten games.
Yes.
We'll just text them to you. Hey, what about this? What about Dizzy's Grand Adventure? I totally forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
I try to replay one of those games because they're all available on the Internet Archive now. Unplayable. I don't know how Child Me managed. So I suppose I should start, right?
Go for it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Ooh.
So can I ask just before we get in there, because we do really in the show at every corner as it turns out.
Derail.
How have you ordered your list?
So because of the way in which I decided to write this down, it's chronological, but
I've done the same thing.
Chronological to when I played them, not chronological to when they came out, which becomes important later.
And actually, funnily enough, that's how my list is kind of ordered too. So
Yep, awesome. That's cool. So I wonder who's gonna start furthest back in time.
I don't think it'll be me.
It was almost me.
Yeah.
Until I was like, does the first game I ever remember playing really, really matter that much? And I was like, no, it doesn't, because it was some terrible Ghostbusters game that I don't even remember what it was called.
it will, given that I'm crumbling to dust, I feel like my one is going to be the oldest of the games. So
You're not crumbling
We'll
to
see.
dust. We'll see, but we'll see. Vitz is going to come out of nowhere with Pong.
Hey, we did have a machine. It was called a grandstand something or other, and we had like 6 different variations of Pong.
was it with the controller, which was just a turny thing?
Yep, with just a dial thing.
I had that as well.
There you go.
Yeah, it was like grandstand sports something or other. And it was like, it's got football, it's got tennis, it's got badminton, it's just all just Pong. It's all just Pong.
Pong was life back then, though.
Pong, the ultimate video game. Yeah, so I'm taking us back with my first game to 1997.
Ooh.
With like it's a game that like no one who knows me will be surprised when I put it on my 10 games to get to know me, which is Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
Because like there's 2 like in the next game after this like is like the 2 sort of game prong attack, which is just like, hey, I played these 2 games and I went from a kid who had games consoles because like everyone had games consoles, and I didn't really like games that much. Because all the games on like the Mega Drive and stuff, I didn't like them very much. They were a bit simple. To being like fucking, well, now here I am sitting on a 385th episode of a gaming podcast. So I guess this is going to explain how that happened over the course of 10 games. And yeah, because this was the first game which had a story that I was actually invested in. Like most games before this were, there are aliens, kill them all. Or get from the left-hand side of the screen to the right-hand side of the screen. And I was like, okay, it's fine, I guess, whatever. And then Final Fantasy VII was like, you're a terrorist. And there's this corporation, and it's trying to kill the planet. And also there's this guy with long silver hair. And like, I don't want to do spoilers with Rebirth right around the corner. But now that I think about it, but yeah, no, it was like I was like invested in the story. Like I played it over a summer holiday, because of the adverts on TV, and it was like it's a video game that has adverts on TV. Like what the fuck?
Can I ask, was this the first title that didn't feel like a toy to you, like previous video games may have felt?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Like it was fun to like do the things and like bop the the
Yeah.
monsters on the head, and they would go in red and then disappear and stuff. And that was all very satisfying to my teenager, like make violence brain, right? But then events transpired, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit. This isn't Golden Axe. What the fuck?
Uh-huh. Amy sat there playing FF7 with a glass of cognac in her hand, saying, "I'm a connoisseur now."
Just like, I get it now. I get
I've
it now.
seen things, man.
Man,
Yes.
let me tell you. Like, no one I knew played Final Fantasy VII, like, by the time I had played it. So I was just like, this fucking sucks. I got no one to talk to about, like, what just happened. I need to talk to somebody about this, like a therapist, a friend, anybody.
Yep.
But no, it was awesome. It opened it up to me like a whole like thing of video games.
I kind of had a similar question to Vitz. Isn't like, was this your first Final Fantasy?
Yeah. So I was a Sega kid. Like, you know, when you're a kid, like you get the games consoles that you are bought. So I had a Master System and a Mega Drive, because my mom liked Sonic the Hedgehog. That was the reason I had a Sega, and then I got a PlayStation 1. So like I didn't have the Nintendo consoles to get like the older fun. I have downloaded and installed on my PS5 right now Final Fantasy VI, which is an upcoming game for me.
Yes.
But it was my first Final Fantasy. It was my first JRPG. And it might have been my first role-playing game, like, entirely, because I didn't have a gaming computer to play, like, Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter. Like, I didn't play those until later. So, like, that's probably why it made such an impact on me, because I hadn't played any other games that had, like, stories and characters. So that's fun. That's my first one.
That was awesome.
And I think a lot of people would put that game on their list. You know, I think even though it's not on mine, it's one I can like totally get. Like if that is your first entry to JRPGs, and you kind of, you know, being the right age as well, like it's hard for a lot of people to not see that as being like a fundamentally like massive game.
Yeah.
Like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading a book about the history of JRPGs last year, and like I was around when FF7 came out, so I knew how like big it was in popularity. But it was cool to just see that context of like how big this was, like for everything, like the games that came after it and the impact it had on like the industry and stuff.
Yeah, because I might be wrong in thinking this, but they were marketing this as this is a story that couldn't be contained by cinema or anything like that, and it took like a team of like 1,000 people to bring this story to life across 3 compact CDs, and it was one of these where it was utterly groundbreaking.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of and it was certainly like, you know, this is taking gaming to the next level, right? You know, the shift from 6 to 7 is massive. Although, you know, as someone who's a bit of a Final Fantasy nerd, I will say that I think Final Fantasy 6 in many ways has a really mature story and is a really strong entry in the series. But you know, you don't see anything quite as dramatic as some of the scenes that happen in 7 in the way that they're like shown this kind of cinematic thing. And you know, to me, games suddenly did become cinematic on the PlayStation through not just things like Final Fantasy, but other games. I'll put my hat on and say I work for Konami, blah blah blah. But like Metal Gear Solid comes onto this bracket as well as a game that really brought cinematic things to life. Yeah, like totally get it. I think it's a great choice.
Nice, nailed it. Yeah.
There you go.
Just wait till it starts getting real weird, because it's going to start getting real weird soon.
Quite a normal choice for number 1.
Yeah, that's how you get them in. That's how you reel them in. You start normal, and then you just start like you just quickly descend the slide into absolute crazy town. Who should let's say let's say you can go second.
Literally and figuratively be our guest.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. I'm all for Disney references. My get first game. You said 1997 Final Fantasy 7, Amy. I'm going to wind us back 12 years back to 1985. And the BBC Micro, which probably most people listening or watching this have not played. And I imagine most people listening or watching have not played this game, which is called Repton. So Repton was made by a studio called Superior Software. It was heavily inspired by Boulder Dash, very interestingly, and I'll hold my hands up and say I'm looking at Wikipedia for this information. The person behind the game was inspired by reading a review of Boulder Dash, but not actually having played the game, which I only found out today, and I think is a massively interesting fact. But anyway, I'll go back to the information I actually do know about this game. So, basically, like I don't know, have you guys ever seen like those like teens react to videos where
Yeah.
you know it's like so
Your
like
soul
I imagine
dies inside. It's
Yeah.
one of those.
yeah. I can't imagine how most of my contemporaries, not only teens, like I'm talking like, people in their 30s or 20s would react to like seeing Repton. Because it just is a game from another time. It was this top-down, side-scrolling puzzler. It had its own like rules in terms of physics. So basically you played this what I think you're a reptile, but you're in a yellow t-shirt for some reason and trousers and have feet. You look a bit like an alien or a reptile. It's really hard to describe. You're going up and down, left to right in this top-down world, and you are trying to find all the diamonds in it. And to do that, you have to push boulders out of the way so you can get there. But also, these boulders follow their own kind of physics rule where they can fall down on you if you move dust from underneath them. And if that all sounds really difficult to visually convey, it's because this game is like so
Looks like
old.
that.
It is so old. Yeah, it's. I don't want to go too much into the game because I think it's very esoteric. This is, probably not a game that is easy to explain without watching it. But you can go and find some videos on YouTube and check it out. I think the more important side to it for me is that this is the game that kind of my dad put me in front of my BBC Micro when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And I remember playing games like this, other games where like I was solving maths problems by moving clouds to fit with weather bits that had matching arithmetic in them, and playing games like Chucky Egg, maybe a bit more famous, Mr. E, a bit more famous. Some of these like real classics, Missile Command, to get back into kind of more like well-known arcade games, and like that is a really formative thing for me in my gaming life was being that age and just this world that I could transport to. You imagine like being 5 or 6 and there's this world that you can go into, and it doesn't matter how bitty or you know uh, uh, unrealistic it looks. To me, it was incredible, and I wouldn't be here working in games, talking about games, if it wasn't for that system and Repton, and it has to go on that list. So it's not Final Fantasy VII or anything like it in terms of its importance, but like to me, it was massive.
Your mere
I think that
imagination fills in the blanks, doesn't it? With like older
100%.
games, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny enough, it's a series that kind of carried on. It had a few extra entries going up until the 90s. The second entry in the series took that concept I described as kind of top-down puzzler and then introduced lots of different rooms you could go into. And I remember working this out about 15 years ago and realizing, oh wait, that's probably the first open world video game because you kind of actually could go across the whole map from one bit to the end. And I was like, I don't think there's another game like that that had been released in like the late 80s. So it's kind of bizarre when you look back on these games like that we played with the text adventures like The Hobbit, which a lot of people would have played at school. Just
Yes.
yeah, exactly right. So, it's just I actually feel very privileged to have been a part of that and to kind of see how gaming kind of grew out of its absolute infancy and to have been part of that journey. And it all began for me with Repton.
Sick.
That's amazing.
Hell yeah. That's such a cool story. Yeah. reminds me of an Amstrad 64. It was like the first gaming
Yeah.
thing that I had, and it came with this fucking huge book where it was like, if you type in all this code without any spelling mistakes, you can play a game. Never managed to play any of those games. That's all I'm gonna say.
I remember having there was a game called Premier Manager 2, which was like one of the sort of early football management type games. And it had a security protection thing where you had this kind of plastic wheel which had 2 rings, and it'd tell you
That sounds
match
familiar.
this code with this code to get
Yeah.
the number. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool until I lost it. But I still wanted to play the game, so every time I'd load it up, I'd have to guess the number, and it would take about 20 or 30 tries. But I would do that because I was an idiot.
Analog DRM.
I'm glad it didn't lock you out. So I had a very similar story to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the Commodore Amiga 500, which we had, and that came with the book. And all the pages were red, like a deep maroon, but it had black text on them, so it was really hard to see in the first place. But yeah, you'd be screwed if you lost that book.
Yeah. Damn. Remember books.
Books with manuals and video games.
Oh,
Like,
some good manuals.
dude.
Hell yeah. My next game
Absolutely.
had a good manual.
Yeah, sometimes you see like some amazing pieces of art which isn't featured in the game at all, but it's only featured in the manual kind of thing. You can be missing out. So
Or like the
Yeah.
entire story of the game is in the manual.
yes.
Cool. That's
I'm pretty
awesome.
sure Repton would have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, that's my one.
It's a good
Like,
first
and
choice.
over to
Oh, cool. So yeah, we're gonna throw back the clock on this one. We're going back to 1993. This was on
Nice.
the Game Boy, which was purchased for me and my brother when we went on a trip to India. So long flight back in those days. Probably still a long flight now. And this was in '95 when I got around to playing this game. But this is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. It is one of the very first games I can remember playing and having a real resonance for being fully invested in the story. So we had titles like Street Fighter 2 and things like that for the Amiga across 4 AAA or floppy disks, and it took like an hour to load in one stage to do a fight kind of thing. But yeah, Link's Awakening was one of those titles which I think because it was on the Game Boy and it was a more personal experience for me, so it wasn't sat in front of a TV where everybody could look and kind of judge on what you're doing and how badly you're playing the game or whatever it is. And that whole notion of it subverting my expectations of where the story goes. And I think for a lot of people, they would have got to the title with the remake that came out fairly recently on the Switch. But yeah, so I played this game originally on the regular Game Boy, and then when my brother got a Game Boy Color, we picked up the DX version. We played it in color and had the extra dungeon on it. And yeah, it was just this is the first game that the first of many games that will make me cry kind of thing at the end in terms of just how emotional that story got and the whole how it dealt with what is reality and what your perception of it as thinking just like damn, as a 10-year-old kid this is getting pretty deep. But yeah, this is a game which will always remain close in my heart.
I adore that choice. It's not going to be the only Zelda on this list. I'm just going to spoil that for anyone.
Yes.
Yeah. But like, what a Zelda to choose because it is the different one. It's fundamentally the one that doesn't fit with the other ones, and it's so quirky and so unusual and interesting. And I played it too on my Game Boy back in the day. I've got the remake sitting there, which I've not yet played because I really want to just give it the time because it deserves it. But like, I just remember there was a feeling of like I have to get to the bottom of this. I have to find my way out because every moment was just kind of gripping in this way that's really hard to describe. It's not like an intense game, but like you are just being propelled from start to finish, and I loved it. I absolutely adored it.
It's when the bosses start going to you, okay, you need to stop all this. You need to stop doing what you're doing. Like, what the hell could that mean?
Yeah.
Like, to this day, I still remember the path through the wind egg at the end on the original Game Boy. I think they mix it up for the remake. So any knowledge you have, take that, forget everything you know. But yeah, it was such a special title that's still in there. Like I can't remember most important things in my life, but I remember that. It's one of those.
because it is one of the most
Yeah,
important
that
things.
fourth wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fourth wall was just completely shattered in that game, right? Like the game was speaking to you directly a lot of the time. It was great.
I need to update my backlog list. It's currently got the Oracle games on it, which is going to make a
Yeah.
slight change.
The Oracle games
that-
were the next two Deltas that I played, and yeah, whilst they were brilliant, for me, Link's Awakening stands far and away above those. But for sure, Amy, I highly recommend checking out the remake if the original is hard to get hold of. I'm not sure if the original is on
All
the
games
Switch.
are easy to get a hold of if you know where to look.
I mean, yeah, depending on how many eye patches you strap on, yeah, for sure. Allegedly.
but that's a question I'd have for you, Vitz. If you had to say which one you should go back to, would you say the original or would you say the remake?
The remake has a ton of more charm that's been added, and I think to your point earlier in terms of your imagination filling in the gaps between the pixels, the remake fills a lot of that in for you, and it is a more cohesive experience. And yeah, the art style is stunning in the remake. So I would say go back to that. But for people who are as old as we are, then you're going to have that initial touch point kind of thing, but you're not quote unquote losing anything if you haven't played the original by picking up the remake.
Noted.
Yeah.
Add it to the pile.
There you go.
If only somebody hadn't made me play a 100-hour game.
Hey, I told you can play 10 hours of Persona 5 and then pick it up afterwards.
It's not how I work.
I knew that though. I knew you'd love it though.
It's true. Is everybody ready for my second game?
Hit me with it.
It's going
Yes.
to 1998. So I'm only
Nice.
I'm only jumping forward 1 year from where I was previously. I'm loving the fact that every time somebody says a game, the year, because I've been doing this.
I'm
I've
trying to
been
work it out.
What game could
Yeah.
this be? It's also a PlayStation 1 game. And it's like a polar opposite to why Final Fantasy VII was so impactful for me. And it's Resident Evil 2.
Ooh.
Oh, good
So,
one.
friends, we are talking about the original release of Resident Evil 2, not necessarily the remake that came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean the remake's good. The remake's don't get me
It
wrong,
sure
the
is.
remake's good. But yeah, no, this was so like now I know well, I don't know a lot about game design, but now I know about game. I know what it is.
Mhm.
Whereas I didn't necessarily know that when I was a kid, but it was like the first game that got me thinking about like how a game is designed and how those design choices like will make you feel as you're playing it. Essentially, it's like the yin and yang of the two games that Final Fantasy VII was the game that got me hooked on like stories in games, and Resident Evil 2 is the game that got me hooked on like games that are just really satisfying to play over and over again, as it turns out. It's the only game I've ever speedrun.
Speedrun Resident Evil 2. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, right, yeah. For a bit there, like I just did it for fun. I was just trying to see if I could finish it in less than 2 hours, and then when I did that, I was like, I bet I could do this in less than 90 minutes. But no, it's like just such a satisfying time, like running around the police station and like picking up all the stuff, shooting, dodging through, and weaving and bobbing and
Duke Mania, absolutely.
Duke Mania, yeah. And I played 2 first because I was too young when the first one came out to play the first one. And then like I was too young to play the second one when the second one came out.
I was gonna say,
you know, like my parents got me because they could tell how excited I was because I kept playing the 10-minute demo instead of other video games. And I would be like looking at the previews in the magazines and going, oh, fuck, this looks fucking amazing. But yeah, no, like it was like the game design, like it was those 2 games like back to back because I played them quite close to each other. Because I didn't play FF7 when it first came out. That was just like that took me from video games, that's all right, I suppose, to like how do I get more of these things, like immediately.
Mhm.
So that was definitely my second one on this journey of me through video games. And also shout out to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which I don't care what anyone fucking says. People liked that game when it came out. It's
They
a
sure
good
did.
fucking game. Trying to rewrite history over here.
Yeah, acting like everybody was running around high school going stars all the time.
Yeah.
They were.
So again, a big question for me, Amy, is where does the remake sit against the original for you?
So, I mean, personally, I prefer the old one, but there is that barrier to entry of: are you used to tank controls or are you not used to tank controls? Like, if you're like good with tank controls, this one. If you're not, yeah, Resi 2 remake, because tank controls are for the fucking worst. Like, if you don't know how they work and don't want to learn.
And I guess as so like in terms of my Resident Evil experience, I played the original, I played 4, I dabbled with 2 and 3, but I've never played them properly, fully from start to finish, including the remake. So like, why Resi 2 compared to like 1 or 4 or 3?
Just the timing. So 4, I mean, we can have that discussion, but we'll be here for an hour.
Yeah.
Like, let's not have that talk.
Sorry.
But
Be ready your podcast. Yeah, go.
Again, it's probably the same as FF7, where it was the first one I played, and I played it at this sort of tipping point of like going from kind of liking video games, they're all right, I suppose, but books are better, to like, no, video games are better than books. What the fuck are you talking about, you dog? And then I'd say that Resident Evil 1, the remake that came out on GameCube, is probably like my favorite Resident Evil of like the entire series. But in terms of like games that had the biggest impact on me, it was definitely Resident Evil 2. I played that game so many times. Like, it always makes me laugh. Like you got modern games that are designed from the ground up to be infinitely replayable, and then I'll play them and I can't even finish them once. But like, I could sit down like after this podcast and play Resident Evil 2 again, very happily, just like, and have a good time.
Absolutely.
The one thing I'll say about the remake, so you may not know this because we just met, but scary games aren't my thing. But I can bravely watch other people play through scary games, like on playthroughs on Twitch or YouTube or whatever happens to be. Resident Evil 2 quite possibly is the grossest looking game I've ever seen in terms of like all the entrails that are coming out of these people and so on and so forth. And from a visceral point of view, it's stunning. I'm sure, like, from the way they've modernized the controls and the way not necessarily the layouts of the various levels work, but just in terms of that moment-to-moment gameplay and how they've modernized that, makes it a lot more approachable for new players to jump into. Yeah, all the viscera that you see, it gives you the shiver. So just take that with a pinch of salt.
You love that RE engine.
Yeah.
It's good at blood and guts.
And showing how hot Leon S. Kennedy is.
That too.
It's a running joke. He's my favorite Backstreet Boy. The things that man does is jumping up and down, suplexing left people left and right.
Where's everybody going? Bingo.
Exactly.
He's got the hair for it, so
Sure does.
Cool. So that was my number
Sadie.
2. Sadie's.
okay. Just to keep up with you guys, I'm going to go all the way from 1985 to 1987.
Hell yeah.
Okay, but I think this one is going to be a more recognizable name because even though it began its life in 1987, it kind of carried on its life through to 1983. And this is Bubble 2, otherwise known as Rainbow Islands. I think its full title is Bubble 2, the story of Rainbow Islands. A lot of people had Bubble as one of their like most influential games. I liked it. I remember being into it on my Amiga and thinking, I'm never going to beat this game. How do you ever get to the 100th level? But it was never like, life stopping in terms of like, this is the only thing I'm going to be doing for the next week of my life. Rainbow Islands was 100% drop everything. This game is now what I do to me as a kid. And I remember I think I was 8 years old. I'd seen reviews about it in Amiga magazines, and I was pestering my mum like, "I need this game. I need this game," which I can't imagine as an 8-year-old how annoying I must have been. But uh, the thing that really I want to kind of hone in on, because actually I've been on another podcast. Sorry to plug a different podcast, but the Kane and Rince podcast, which kind of digs extensively into one game each show, and they invited me to talk about Rainbow Islands. And I really think if anyone wants to hear more about that game, that's a really good listen if you just ignore the bits I'm on it for. But in terms of Rainbow Islands, the thing that I really want to kind of highlight is like it got me thinking about how you make games, because the kind of programming behind it was just outrageous. Kind of distill that into two key things. It's a platformer where you scroll upwards, a bit like Ice Climbers, and you're trying to collect crystals along the way. Now, the way to collect crystals is to use your rainbow, which is something that you kind of shoot from your hand, and it just stays in the world, and you can like jump on that rainbow to kill an enemy beneath it, or you can kill an enemy above it by hitting it up, and then you get the crystals. Depending, they'll fall down to the ground somewhere. Now, depending which horizontal slice, and I'm trying to do this on the screen, of the screen they fall in, they'll be a different color. So, like the red ones will be here on the left, orange ones, and then the whole rainbow across. And that is just like scratching the surface of the absolutely outrageous, ridiculous programming that's in this game. It's just an absolute programming masterpiece. And even at like 8 or 9, I was like, starting to see these rules like popping up and being like, wow, this game is just crazy. Like, and then I remember coming back to maybe like 15, 16 and starting to see all the lists of all the ways different things worked in this game. And it's just a silly platformer with rainbows, but it's nuts in terms of how hard it is. It's incredible in terms of how well programmed it is. It's unlike most other platformers of its time. And it's honestly, like, to me, still one of the most unique video games I've played. And again, talking like Repton is a game that kind of got me into gaming. This one got me thinking a bit more about how people make games. And even though it's not the end of career that I've ended up in, it did get me thinking, like, I would quite like to make games. Again, I probably wouldn't be working in the games industry if it wasn't for a game like Rainbow Islands, which just showed me like how cool it is to get to work on something like this and be a part of it, even if it's not maybe making it. So it's a huge game for me. And if you haven't played it, don't go play any of the like future versions. Go play the original. Go find it on a system where it's kind of as visually resplendent as possible, and I promise you won't be disappointed. It still holds up really, really well.
Good games
That's
will
awesome.
never age. That's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I guess the shame with it as well is that series just did not really come back ever properly. Like there was a sequel to that game, Parasol Stars, which did quite well, was well reviewed, but Bubble has never really been as huge as it was back in that day. There were Puzzle Bobble, and there've been, releases. Even I think a new Bubble Bobble came out recently, which did some things, but I don't think that series has ever quite caught the fire like it did before, and I really think that's a shame because it's honestly just very cool. The original Bubble Bobble is really cool. Puzzle Bobble is really cool. These are very good games, and it'd be awesome if there's a way for them to come out of resurgence one day. At least just for me. Just do it for me, please, Taito.
I think it's a reasonable ask, to be fair.
Yeah, that sounds totally reasonable.
One question I had. So, one thing I have kind of gathered through the ether about games from that era is that they were difficult because many of them had arcade releases first, and they were designed to be difficult in a way to extract your 20 pence or quarter or whatever it happens to be, kind of thing. Did this have an arcade release, or was it just difficult because difficult sake?
No, 100% it did, and I think it was a bit more forgiving than a lot of arcade releases that became games. So in Rainbow Islands, funny enough, everything is around the number 7. There are 7 stages to complete, and the first 2 stages are really kind of quite gentle and easy, and then the game suddenly rapidly goes off in difficulty to the third one, and then by the fourth stage, it's just really hard, and the game is absolutely designed to get you deep into it, and then you're like, oh no, I'm dead. Yeah, put another quarter in and keep going. But I think as well, beyond that kind of like natural arcade difficulty, just the mechanics itself are really interesting. You know, like a lot of platformers at that time followed the kind of Mario mold of characters jumping on enemies, or you know, even Sonic has that kind of similar system. In Rainbow Islands, you don't jump on the enemies; you jump on rainbows that then go fall on the enemies, or you knock them with rainbows up into the sky, or you hit them with the rainbow which fires out of your hand at an arc. And then you use the rainbow to like go through the level as well. You're literally climbing the rainbows and jumping up by climbing these rainbows. And it's again, I think the difficulty is just like this is not like other platformers made it really interesting. You had to think differently playing Rainbow Islands than you did to other platformers. It was a really good cerebral challenge to beat that game, and I've only done it a few times. Yeah, and I could honestly spend hours talking about it. Go listen to that podcast if you want to hear more.
I'll find it and dig it out, and I'll put it as a link in the description.
Hell
And
yeah.
if I can't find it, I'll just ask where it is. You might get a message. Come and find this podcast. Help.
And just in general, Kane and Rinse is a really, really good podcast run by a bunch of excellent people. They dig into a video game each episode, and it's honestly one of the most cerebral, brilliant podcasts out there. They've been going for a while, and do check them out.
Great stuff.
It's
cool. Yeah. So, bit of background to this one. So we had video games in the house when, like, in the very early 90s. So as I alluded to before, we had a Commodore Amiga 500. We also had a Mega Drive 2 that may or may not have fallen off the back of a van at some point. Somebody went to jail. We were never told who, but we were told, right, no more video games on this person because they went away. I said, okay, no worries then. But then high school rolled around, and growing up in an Asian household, and this may be true of other households as well, but I didn't grow up in any of those. They were like, okay, video games bad, studying good, so no more video games. And I was like, oh, okay.
And identify.
Yeah, these be the rules. So I had a break from gaming from like 95 all the way through to when I started university. And I remember the very first thing I ordered from Amazon back in 2003 was a PlayStation 2, because I was like, you know, I really like video games. Let's get back into it. The other thing that developed during my time when I wasn't playing games was my love for all things racing and motorsport. And then all I heard about was a series called Gran Turismo, and how incredible it was and how realistic it was, and the breadth of all the cars and the real life circuits and all these events you can do. I was like, all right then. So the very first game I picked up for my PS2 was Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. However, the game I want to talk to you about today was its sequel that released in 2004, was Gran Turismo 4. At this time, this was a sequel to the much beloved GT3. Goes without saying, but this was the game which got me and all my friends who were at uni, and we were all reading the same course centered around motorsport. So it was just a perfect match of all of our passions combining, and we'd all get around and we'd do the insanely long 24-hour races, and we'd do them live, and we'd swap out drivers and all the rest of it. And we would come into lectures the next day, and we would talk about all the races we did and all the cars that we had purchased with all the credits and so forth. And even our lecturers who were race car drivers, so we would go spanner for them at the weekends at the events they were running. They were into the game as well, and the first thing they'd come in and start their lectures off with was, okay, who's done that Nürburgring 24-hour race? She did put her hands up. It said, yeah, lots of pizza fueled that race, but we managed to do it, kind of thing. But that was a game that kind of centered my love of motor racing with my love of video games, and that is still for me the peak of the franchise. I think with GT7, even though I've sunk like 300 hours into that game, it's a pale comparison of what it used to be, and I think that's a result of Kazunori Yamauchi-san really wanting to make Gran Turismo into an esports title rather than what it used to be for people who are more orientated towards single player games and things like that, which is a shame, but these are the way of the world. But yeah, that time and place, and that was the very first game I bought the wheels and the pedals for and all the rest of it, and yeah, that was a special time. So that game will always make well, again, it'll have a very special place in my heart, and it even informed the music I was listening to back then because the soundtrack was so influential. And yeah, it was just a real nice accumulation of all things that go brum in the night. Exactly.
I
love it.
I still listen to the Gran Turismo 1 soundtrack sometimes. Some of the not the licensed stuff, but some of the actual like music from the game. It still gets stuck on my head.
Yep. They loved a bit of like cafe lounge jazz.
Yeah, there's like this one guitar track that he used to play, and I was like, yeah, I can probably hum it.
Yeah, Moon Over the Castle is still such an absolute banger of a song. Yeah, they bring it back for every single Gran Turismo, and yeah, it's just as special now as it was back then.
And I really liked Gran Turismo 3, which I think was probably for a lot of people PlayStation 2, like that was the driving game that they played rather than 4, which was even though 4 was reviewed really, really well and it was really pretty popular, but 3 was like that game. Right? And that soundtrack is killer on that game. Like you had Feeder and Muse, I think, as well. Like what a soundtrack. Jeez.
It's not even a back in the day.
It's great.
I was listening to those bands the other day. Cool. So I think now is probably a good time to take a quick half time. This is the thing we do now, and I always forget to warn everybody who comes on who's not Vitz and Moody, where halfway through the podcast we take a break because people might need to pee and do other things, and I hit pause on the recording. And we always announce it, even though it's just a quick cut, because we're professionals. So we're gonna take a quick break.
She said it with conviction, everybody. She said it with conviction.
One day, and we'll be back in a second. Okay.
I'm excited to hear some of your choices, Amy. Honestly, I can't wait.
I mean, we're still in the fairly normal phase. It's more towards the end where it starts getting a bit more. Actually, it doesn't really. I just like to build these things up. Anyway, where are we? Number 3.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got 2 pieces of the puzzle. The game that was like, oh, stories and video games, and then number 2, which was like, oh, game design and video games. But there's a missing piece of the puzzle, which is when did I start realizing that there were certain games out there where I would just not shut the fuck up about them. Leading to all of this in a roundabout way. And that game came out in 2001, and it was called Silent Hill 2.
That is an Amy game.
Oh, fuck yeah. It's like, oh, you thought Final Fantasy VII story was deep and dark? And Silent Hill 2 just came along and wiped its ass with it. Which sounds like something Silent Hill 2 would actually do. But
we'll find out in the remake.
Well, I don't want to talk about the remake. But no, like this is another one I played so many on my Xbox, like because I had a weird journey through video game consoles. I went from a PlayStation to an Xbox, and Silent Hill 2 came out on that, which was good because I really liked the first one. But the way like the story is, and like the revelations that occur in regards to the character that you're playing, and then just the way the game works and the way it's like psychological horror instead of like the Resident Evil style like B-movie like style like schlock horror. Or just like the jump scare horror where it's like a thing comes out of the thing goes blah, 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 and you go but then it's not really that scary. Whereas Silent Hill 2 like just very slowly just gets under your skin to the point where things that aren't really that scary terrify you. Like a long hallway with nothing in it, and nothing will happen in this long hallway. But you go,
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I want to walk down there. I think I'm just gonna save and leave the room for several days.
I'm sure it'll be fine. You go first, Amy. I'm just saying. I'm sure it'll be fine.
But Silent Hill 2. That was the first like game where I was incessantly talking about Silent Hill to everybody all the time. Like, I didn't have blogs or YouTube channels or anything like that at the time, so my friends in real life just had to put up with me going on about it. But no, that was the first sort of if the YouTube channel, if YouTube had been a thing, that would have been my first video would have been about Silent Hill 2.
I'm just imagining all your friends trying to, interrupt you talking about Silent Hill 2. I'm podcasting right now, and
Like,
you're my listener.
look,
Like, just chill
okay?
out.
Look, we're gonna talk about this, okay? Like, we need to talk about the Pyramid Head for another 3 hours, right? So shut up. Get some popcorn.
But not to
So I
watch
don't
the
have
Silent Hill
loads
movie
to-
because that was not a good movie.
We don't talk about that.
So I don't have loads to add about Silent Hill 2, except to say that I used to be on a podcast with a lovely guy called Joseph Delia, and Silent Hill 2 was his absolute favorite game. He would not stop talking about it like you, Amy, and he would tell me to play it all the time. And I'd like you to know, Joe, just somehow, let's say you're watching and listening to this, that I now work for the company that is behind Silent Hill and Silent Hill 2 and all the other Silent Hill games, including the remake, and I've not yet played Silent Hill 2.
Huzzah!
I intend to, and it's a great pick.
You're pretty proud of it. You got the three foundational puzzle pieces of what makes me tick.
There you go.
And that was the third one. Cool. So, Sadie.
Brilliant. So I actually can't remember what year this was made. I think in my head I've got 1993. But we've already had one Zelda title, and I think I've probably given it away now.
Yes.
But this obviously came out after A Link's Awakening, and was the one and only Zelda game on the Super Nintendo, and that was Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
According to Google, it was 1991.
Really, that old? Okay, wow, crazy.
Google might be wrong. It's wrong a lot these days.
No, I think that's probably accurate. I think in my head, I was maybe a touch older when I played it. Maybe I played it at 1992.
It was 92 in Europe and North America. It was 91 in
Yeah.
Europe.
So I think that tracks. I probably did play it in 1993, most likely when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I remember playing with my cousins. I brought my Super Nintendo with me to my cousins, and we just played it through Christmas holidays. And it's the era where you're calling up Nintendo hotlines to try and help you with puzzles that you can't solve. I mean, I don't think I'm going to say anything that hasn't already been said about this game. This is one of the most beloved, well-known video games. I think what I will say is that I'm personally have not really resonated with where Legend of Zelda has gone. I think Breath of the Wild is a great game. I don't see it personally like some other people do, where they might put it on this list, for example. To me, Zelda has been its best, or like the most enjoyable for me as a gamer in this era. And I don't know, something about this kind of the purity of this game, the top down, the intelligence of the puzzles, the creativity of the two worlds, just how it felt like every little pore of this game had been thought about really in so much detail. Every little patch you could walk into, that speaks to me. And I do think, even beyond it being on this list, for me, it's just fundamentally one of the best games ever made.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, when you said Zelda, because I picked up my phone to be ready to Google, and as soon as you'd said Zelda in 1993, I was already typing Link to the Past. That's how I got the answer so fast.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that's kind of resonated with a lot of our early answers already is this is a game I really enjoyed playing with other people and then experiencing with them, and it's actually kind of almost the antonym, the opposite to what you were saying, Vitz. Like this was something I played with my cousins around me, and we were all glued to the screen. And even though only one of us had the controller, we were all like, go that way. No, you solved the puzzle doing this, and no, we got to find this sword, or we got to find this, shield. It's just such a strong memory for me, and it'll never ever leave my heart, my soul, and of course, this game has to be on my list.
That's fantastic. And there's a fairly decent port of it available on the Switch Online service. So you can play that, and obviously with the way that works, it kind of works like playing games through an emulator. If you've allegedly tried those in the past, where you can save at any point and rewind and things like that. So that's an option that's available to you.
And if you also, another thing you can do is play the 3DS game A Link Between Worlds, which is an amazing modern homage. It's basically a Link's to Past 1.5, and it's brilliant for it.
That's an amazing pick.
Oh, hell yeah.
Thank you. I hand it over to you after just that little easy title to follow on from,
yeah. So when we last picked up with myself, we were talking about how we first got our PlayStation 2 and picked up GT4. Now we're moving to 2006, which I consider the swan song year of the PS2. There's a couple of titles in here, but the first one is Shadow of the Colossus. I kind of want to twin pack this with Eco as well, but for the rules that I've set myself for this list, it's Shadow of the Colossus. And this game took my breath away in a number of ways, how it was completely different to everything else that was out there on the market at the time, in terms of you are, for all intents and purposes, alone in this world, and your only companion is Aro the horse, and you're in a position where you're doing anything in the world to bring back your last love, Mono. And it's one of these where, because there is so little dialogue, and whatever dialogue is there is in a language which you don't understand, you're projecting a lot of the story onto yourself, and you're trying to fill in these gaps. And you're in this desolate world where, fair enough, there's some lizards to chase at some of the shave shrines and things like that, but it's you and 16 of these beautiful colossi, and they're so intricate in their design, and they're all varied, and they all have different mechanics in the way that they work and how you take them down, and the way that story progresses, and how some of the other characters who are introduced in the prologue come back and kind of shift your perspective on, oh, you're the bad person in this game. You're the ones doing this, and you're going to pay a terrible price. And how, in my mind at least, it works as a sequel to Eco, with how it ends up and things. And if Eco is a story about, for me at least, how love kind of blooms, it's what happens when that love dies, kind of thing, and what lengths you go to bring that back. And there's a bit with Aro the horse, and obviously throughout your journey together, you have an intense bond with the horse itself, and they befall some tragedy, or at least it seems so on the surface. And I've never done a let's fucking go when he comes back at the end. Obviously, the state in which he comes back with, my housemates at the time were keen to point out, yeah, they're not recovering from that injury, but it didn't matter to me, kind of thing. We just got to spend some more time with them, and they're happy in the garden at the top of the tower at the end. And yeah, the soundtrack is incredible. And so another thing that resonated with me a lot through this list is the quality of the soundtracks of these games. And video game music is something that I adore since day one, even from hearing Yoko Shimomura's arrangements on Street Fighter 2 and things like that, and all those iconic tracks. And Shadow of the Colossus has another stellar one, and it's random how many times those themes will just pop into your head when you're doing the most mundane tasks. It's like, you want to make doing the washing up the dishes heroic, then put that soundtrack on, and you can feel like you can take down a colossi yourself. And it's amazing. There are several ports and remakes available. The last one, I think, done by the fabulous people at Bluepoint, and go and check that out.
I intend to. It's high on my list because I've never played Shadow.
And I've got to send you Nick Sutner's book that he wrote over it as well, which is a really good compendium piece.
Yeah, I was sat on the couch watching a friend play it on PS2 years and years ago, but it's time for me to play it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I came back to it late, Amy, and it 100% holds up. I think the best praise I could give it is that to me, it's a game where if you talk about it now, someone would say, "Oh, so that was like a digital download, right?" Because no one would make that a fully fledged retail game. And you're like, 2006, baby, someone could get away with making this game and putting it on a disc because O'Toole's existed and they could make games like this.
Yeah, Wade Sun and the team knocked it out of the park.
I did play the last guy.
It's just incredible.
So I'm aware of how good that team is.
Absolutely. Great
Um,
choice.
Thank you.
So my story starts going now, right? Because so you've got story, you've got game design, you've got won't shut the fuck up about a game, and then in 2005/6, I can't remember the exact year it was, I bought my first graphics card for a computer, and I was a PC gamer.
Oh, nerds.
Oh, totally. Like, yeah, no,
Exactly.
100%. Um, and I learned how to install it and did all that stuff. And then I was like, cool, this whole new world of games is open up to me. And it's 2 games, but the headline is I played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and I learned what an immersive sim is.
Yeah. Ooh,
And I found
nice one.
I was home. Like I don't know, like it's the best way to describe like my first sort of foray into the immersive sim genre, where it was just like this is everything I need out of a video game. Like the other game was Deus Ex. I played that right after.
That tracks.
Yeah, which is like it's like a hell of a 1-2 punch. Um, and immersive sims are just so fucking good. Like I like it's like as someone who like says a lot of words about games, on the internet, like I like struggle to express my love of immersive sims because it's so like mundane sounding. It's like I get disappointed when windows don't work in video games. Like if I can't smash a window and climb in through it, like I'm instantly just a little bit let down. Like and Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was such a revelation where it was just like, it's these different hubs, and you don't need a map because everything is like everywhere you need to go in this map is like it stands out, right? It's like, oh, like you have some character will tell you, oh, can you go to this apartment building, and I'm like, yep, I'm already on it, and I can walk there without like having to check a map, which is good because the game didn't have one. And then just like the way like worlds interconnect and like levels, and it's like you can approach something from like 20 different directions, and you can fight, or you can sneak, or you can hack this computer, or you could to bring Prey, the game I just played, into this, you can just like carry turrets everywhere. And
Viable
just
strategy.
and just don't you don't even know fight things yourself. And like that to me is like peak like game. Like that's what I want to do in every single video game. I want to carry turrets everywhere and not have to shoot anything.
Nice.
Also,
So
vampires are
One
really
I need
hot.
to do.
Would
That
help
too, I like that. That's just your basis for your platform that you stand on. That Amy wants to carry turrets everywhere. That's her line in the sand.
I wanna break all the windows. And I want to carry all the turrets. And I
Vote
want to
for
do as
Amy.
little as possible.
I've never played. I know I need to. It's funny enough, really randomly, but we were talking about Vampire the Masquerade at work today, and I'm just amazed that we're now talking about it in this podcast.
It's a very
Yeah.
difficult game to play. Unfortunately, it was rushed out of the door to be the first non-Half-Life 2 Source Engine game, so it wasn't finished. And then the studio got closed down. So you have to use mods to actually make it function properly.
The series continues, right? We had a recent release. Is that correct? Am I wrong about that?
The second one hasn't come out yet.
Oh, is that the game that they're talking about coming out? Is that the one? I don't know. I might.
There's a sequel, which I think I talked about a little bit last week.
Yeah, I think for correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's been vaporware for a while.
Yeah. But no, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines like opens up a whole world of like this genre of games that is now so you know how like some people like a game in a series comes out like Moody with Pokemon, where it's like it doesn't matter like what the reviews are or what this is or what that is, you'll just buy it no matter what. That's me, but with this genre where it's like, oh, someone's releasing an immersive sim, I will download this. I'm already playing it.
Amazing. Love it.
So Sadie, over to you.
Okay. This is where I'm struggling because I've got a couple that are sort of I'm not sure about, and one that I'm kind of thinking about because there are games which are very much um, games that I loved and games that I think I played so many hours to, but are they the games that really define me? So like I'm gonna skip ahead and leave a couple of generations behind and catch up the rest of you guys and come up to the PlayStation 2 area. And
Nice.
yeah, I think this is either 2001 or 2002 or 2000. It's around that time. We've already had one Final Fantasy 7, which you know, great choice. But fundamentally, my favorite Final Fantasy and one of my favorite games of all time is Final Fantasy X.
Let's play
Final
baseball,
Fantasy 10.
baby.
Let's play Blitzball. Anyone who's followed me in my career through games knows that I love this game and will have heard me talking about how I played this game when I was in a bad time in my life, and it really brought me out of that bad time, and helped me kind of refine myself. I'm not going to talk about that side. I wanted to kind of hone in on something that has maybe later in life I've come back to and resonated with this game, and that is that I think it's really a story of feminine or female strength. With its lead character, Yuna, and I really do think of her as the lead of this game and not Tidus or Tidus. This is ultimately, the whole game. I'm going to call him Tidus. Sorry, Square Enix. Tidus talks, about how this is his story, and it's just not. It's just not. It's her story. She is this 18-year-old summoner's daughter who has been thrust all this responsibility to go and save the world by sacrificing herself. Like, what an incredible thing to take upon yourself. An allegory for war and for all the things that we asked of young people to do and sometimes still do to this day, to go and put themselves out there knowing they will probably die. And in her case, she knew she was going to die, and that was the only way. That's the only way you can save the world. And even if you do that, it will just happen again anyway. You're just forestalling the end of the world. And she does it, and she barely registers any emotion outwardly about it. She's smiley, she's bubbly. She refuses to let that not be the thing that happens, even right through to the end. And then at the end of it, all of it, she falls for a man who's not even real. He just disappears, and that last scene of her. Sorry, spoilers, massive spoilers. But the last scene of her, running to hug Tidus and just falling through him is one of the most. I can't watch that scene without crying. It is. I get there's so many memes about the voice acting, about Blitzball, all these things, but exactly all this stuff. People forget this is, but in terms of story and JRPGs, it's one of the best, and for me, it's the one that made me kind of okay, holy shit, video games, you can have me crying for days, and I just adore it. I think it's amazing, and I pray that it again gets the treatment like Seven has. So, and I'm getting a teary and worked up talking about it, so I'm going to stop.
No, I think it's a beautiful choice, and I think one of the great things about it is the first Final Fantasy title that featured voice acting for the cutscenes and things, and I think that helped a lot of people relate to everything that was going on and gave some context to the tone that was being said in the various lines. It's one that I haven't got round to yet, but it's definitely one on my list, and I hear amazing things about 10.2 as well, and the whole dress sphere system and things like that. And Yuna's character change that she goes through in terms of where she goes from being the character that she is in 10 to where she ends up in being 10.2 with the rest of the band and things like that. And
someone gives her a gun.
Yes. So I think Final Fantasy 12 was my first Final Fantasy, but I think had I played 10 first, that would be I think that would be one of my favorites for sure going forwards.
I have strong opinions about 10.2, which I won't get into here, but I think one of the amazing things about that anecdote you're saying about the voice acting, again, I've already spoiled it for you, and I really apologize, Vitz.
Oh, it's okay.
But in that final scene I was describing, where goes through this kind of holographic ghost of Tidus that he's disappearing and go basically into the ether. And in the Japanese original dub, Yuna says, "Thank you." But the English dub, they made a choice, which you wouldn't say in a Japanese game like this. You just not in this time, but they made the choice to change that to "I love you," and it's just. I'm actually getting emotional just talking about it. It's honestly that I can't imagine that scene any other way. It's beautiful. It is, yeah. Honestly, if you haven't played it, Final Fantasy X, go into it with an open mind. Ignore, memes around voice acting.
Yeah.
Ignore that the voice acting isn't even that good. It isn't that good. The game is spellbinding.
Great stuff.
That's my choice. I hand it over to you before I start crying.
No, it's all good. Carrying on the Square Enix train, we go to 2006, and we are going to marry Square Enix with Disney in the sequel to one of my favorite games.
Oh
Yes,
wow.
one of my favorite games of all time. It is Kingdom Hearts 2, and I think this is where a lot of my positive deposition comes out into. Many people know me as an eternal optimist, foolhardily so, and I think this is the game that made me that way. And it's bad romances and rad romances all the way down with Sora and Riku and Kairi and all the rest of it. And it so I played the original later than when it came out, just at the time I bought my PS2 and things like that. And Kingdom Hearts 2 was the one that I was there for launch day. And reading all the magazines, you got to read issues of Edge and things, and they'd have like previews.
I still collect Edge.
Yeah, 100%. And you'd see the artwork that was coming out for this game, and you'd see His Majesty King Mickey there with the rest of the gang and Sora and Donald, and you'd think of them as your dear friends because of the journey that you went through and what Sora and the gang go through in that game, and all the original worlds that they return to and the new worlds that they come across, and the improvements of that game itself, especially from the first one, which could feel clunky, is a kind way of putting it, and just the way the soundtrack works and how all of the Disney worlds that you go to, they have obviously their own arrangements, and it's instead of a condensed retelling of the story, and like for some of the worlds they go through, okay, what would happen next? And for sure, most of these Disney sequels, like in a straight to VHS kind of world, not even DVD at that point of view, but for many of the Disney properties, that was my first exposure to them. So yeah, even though the voice actor who plays Homer J. Simpson is voicing the genie in Agrabah kind of thing, obviously that's sacrilege to say because it's Robin Williams kind of thing who's supposed to be the real one. But that was my first exposure to it, and that was me, and that's my experience. Kingdom Hearts 2 remains one of the most special games to me, and as a fan of the team over at Kind of Funny and seeing Snowbite Mike play through the first Kingdom Hearts and absolutely loving it, they are about to start their journey in Kingdom Hearts 2 soon. After he made all of chat watch a 4-hour breakdown of Chain of Memories, we're about to start Kingdom Hearts 2, and I can't wait to see his face and all of his emotions that he goes through, because it is one of the most special games. Let your heart be the guiding key, which I know is from the third one, but I still relate it to this one.
It's a good saying. I was expecting you to say Final Fantasy 12 when you said 2006, and you just said you played it, but Kingdom Hearts 2, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, 2006 was an absolute swan song for the PS2. Then God of War 2 released in that year as well. But for the one that pulls on my heartstrings, it's Kingdom Hearts.
Nice. I just sent you a video you should watch after this podcast.
I've received
it. Damn. How do I follow these?
With the hope and the optimism that I put on the table, you take it away.
These heartfelt, emotional, you've both put your hearts out there, and so I'm gonna talk about shooting people.
Yes.
like a lot of people.
Nice.
So this game didn't come out I played this game the year it came out, but I'm talking about sort of like a few years after, where I moved around a lot after university, and you have to keep in touch with people, and one of the ways I kept in touch with people was playing video games, and the main with them. I should say, multiplayer games. And the main game that I associate with that would be Halo 3. Not
You
even my
finished the
favorite.
fight.
Not even my favorite in the Halo series, but like probably the most personally resonant because I just remember all those times in like Xbox Party Chat, and all the nights we'd play like Halo 3, shooting everybody. Like we got really good at that game because we played it too much. But yeah, there's not really like a deeper sort of significance to it. It's just video games for me partially have also like as well as everything else I've talked about I've always been sort of a way to keep connected with people. um Halo 3 is probably the biggest part of that, but I mean, like, how many games could I throw into that list, like the original Left 4 Dead or Modern Warfare, or like fast forward through. I actually wrote a bunch of them down where I could fast forward through time to games like that we've played now, like Among Us, so Overwatch that I used to play a lot, Phasmophobia, and maybe Lethal Company.
100%.
But Halo 3 was sort of like the first like play it as many nights as like I could with friends, and like I had a partner at the time, and like she would just sit there and watch, and like we'd set it up so she could have her own headset and chat with us while we were playing and stuff. It was just an awesome sort of setup that we had going on.
Oh, I love that.
That sounds cute.
I think
I mean,
games could
Halo
be.
3 was.
Sorry, carry on.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, so games can be a lot of things to many different people. They can be your friends. They can be the conduit to connect with your friends. They can be your parents in some cases. In some instances, they can be your therapist. And I think it's beautiful in the different ways that
I have one of those coming up.
yeah, it's beautiful in the way that games can bring us all together, and even is to shoot some aliens in the face. It's a wonderful thing.
Oh yeah, it shot so many people. Oh my god,
so many people.
I mean, aliens, mostly aliens. It's okay.
No, they were all the
Halo
Master
3.
Chiefs. Everybody looked like
Those Spartans had it coming, Sadie.
I tried. I mean, I remember where I was when Halo 3 came out, was living in West London, and they were making that giant mural in the Westfield shopping centre of Master Chief. And that always sticks to me just as a reminder of just how freaking big that game was. Like, it was huge. It was the biggest game it was meant to be of 2007. And it was, just, I think it was 2007 or 2008 maybe. But either way. Oh, nice. But yeah, like, just everyone was playing it. That's what I remember. Everyone was playing Halo 3.
Yeah, I remember the commercial that came out with that, where I think it was for Halo 3, where they made the diorama.
Yep.
And it was the panning shot of it going through with the tiny camera, and yeah, it was amazing.
Halo trailers. Fucking some of those Halo trailers.
The
trailer for Halo Reach, which I first saw in the middle of a football match in a pub. And I was like, God damn. Like, you fucking got me. You got me right here with that trailer. Holy shit.
I love Amy just being like, okay, we don't need to watch the second half of this game. Run that advert back on.
I don't like football. Can we rewind that? Yeah, so Halo 3. And over to you, Sadie.
So, again, because I'm sort of humming and ahhing about some of my choices, I'm actually going to go miles into the future now, and take us to, I think, specifically 2019. But this really is difficult. I'm kind of going to maybe work this out as we talk through whether I'm going to talk about the game as a whole or specifically this one expansion for it. So the game itself is Final Fantasy XIV. Yes. I feel like we've been talking about Square Enix, so we have to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. And I'm kind of honing in on the particular expansion, which is Shadowbringers. Now, people probably are very aware of Final Fantasy XIV having had this, remarkable resurface that came out. And I remember playing the original, having played Final Fantasy XI, having been a kind of low-key MMO player who'd put quite a bit of time to World of Warcraft, quite a bit of time to EverQuest 2, but never like lots like anyone else had. Like, I'd get to a fairly high level and then stop. And then I came to Final Fantasy XIV, and I was like, wow, this doesn't look very good. And then it had the Realm Revealed treatment. And I came back in about 2018, I think it was. And holy crap, that game just took over my life. And I think the revelation for me is it realizing that even at my ripe old age, that a game can do that to me still. That I can become huge, just overwhelmingly consumed. And I surfed through those expansions, and got to the end of Stormblood, and Shadowbringers was coming out, and I thought, well, it's not going to get better than this. And Shadowbringers is ultimately for me one of the best Final Fantasies, and it's a travesty that people haven't played it because it's an MMO expansion. And I think it speaks to me in particular. It resonates with me because you have this character
hiding. Sadie, you should do this.
That's okay. It's fine. You're not the only one by some distance. I think I'm more frustrated by people who, profess themselves to be big Final Fantasy, nerds. And I'm guilty for other games in this series, so I'm being entirely hypocritical and not very serious. But like they'll say that, and I'll say, "Have you played Shadowbringers?" And they'll say, "No, it's Final Fantasy 14." I'm like, you're lost. You're missing out on this. It is a work of art in terms of its construction. The lead villain is one of the best video game characters ever made. In itself. Just we talked about like Sephiroth already before. We talked about Final Fantasy X, and you have Seymour. All these games that have big villains. None of them are as deep, as well constructed and relatable and as sympathetic as Emmett Selk. He could belong in any other medium as a well-written villain. At the end of the game, you don't know if you've done the right thing. Even though the game is like telling you, beating you over the head, yeah, you won. You're there like, I didn't want to kill him though. I didn't want him to go. He's not bad, is he? Even though he's like, and again, spoilers, he's literally killed thousands of people, but you're like, but I get why. I get it. I understand you. Don't go away. And the game somehow, in its next expansion, makes him even more sympathetic. I think the two big things for me for this one, it's a game that I've realised I can still be addicted to games, in a very good way, that I can throw my life into. When the next expansion, Dawn Trail, comes out, I'll be there. Day one, taking a week off work. And Amy will probably message me and not get a reply back for a week. But the second side is just this one expansion. I probably will say Shadowbringers to be specific. It's just brilliant, and it speaks to like how I would want to write a game, how I'd want to construct a villain, and I just love everything about it. So Final Fantasy 14 Shadowbringers.
Sorry, I wasn't being rude there. I heard the word spoilers, so I immediately took my headphones off because between you and Vitz hammering me over this game for like the last 2 weeks, I've just it's on the spreadsheet now. All right? I've just typed it in.
I did do fairly big spoilers, so you're 100% right.
God damn all of you.
Sadie, so I only got into Final Fantasy 14 maybe a year and a half ago. But yeah, 290 hours later, and like racing through the expansions, like we've hit the level 90 cap. I know it's slightly more now, kind of thing, but it's like, okay, I can't wait for Dawn Trail to come out. The expansions themselves are in many ways better than some mainline entries to the franchise, and it's one of these where yes, there is a high barrier to entry, and even though everything from Realm Reborn onwards is amazing. I think for the time commitment that's expected of people to get into a quote unquote MMO, even though you can play it solo if you wanted to, and it's perfectly viable, and you just need to team up for the alliance raids and things like that. But it's such a special experience, and the band of characters that they put you through, they become your family at the end of the day, and you do anything for them. But the way the game makes the quote unquote villains, like you were alluding to, they're so relatable, and it has you questioning the things that you're doing in the name of in the name of celestial beings and things like that. And it's a special game. But Amy, I spared you the rant about the free trial and whatnot. I know it's on your list, and we'll leave it at that.
Hear about that fucking free trial one more time.
The critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy 14.
There you go.
You can play the one last thing I'll say about 14, just to add to what Viz was saying, is we talked a lot about music already as well, and the story behind its composer. Like he's honestly probably one of the best composers working in games right now, if not up the best, and his story of coming back from cancer to create, the soundtrack to Shadowbringers is incredible, and some of the music in that game in itself will make you cry. So just a special shout out to him.
100%. Yeah, I still hear, even though it was many, many hours ago at this point, the theme to Uldar just going around in my head, and especially the theme that plays in the evening. And it's a chilled out theme, and it starts, and it's just when that piano just like tinkles into the song. Oh, it's so damn special. But yeah, Amy, you have this all to come at some point in your own good time with minimal pestering.
It's on the list, all right?
Yeah.
I can't remember whose game that was.
That was mine. Sorry, so I hand it over to Vitz.
It's all good. We're gonna skip through to 2011 for a small game that came out from the fine people at Valve, and it's called Portal 2. Portal 2 is as many games on this list. I consider it to be a masterpiece, and the first one is as well. But I think for the way that they kind of switched up the art style and brought it in line with what was current gen at the time, and the story that they told, and everything that was going on with GLaDOS and Wheatley came through, and it's a game I can replay endlessly and still find new things and new intricacies in the line delivery and what they did. With some of the characters that you find towards the latter third of the game, it's amazing, and it's one of these where everybody talks about the song that plays at the end of the first one. I happen to prefer the song that plays at the end of this one, like "Want You Gone." But again, it's a toss up, and they are both such special experiences. And this game, like many of the great puzzle games, made you feel like a genius every time you solved a solution. And typically there was only one way to solve it, and you can haphazardly find yourself just flinging yourself across the maps to get to the end zone. But whatever way you managed to figure that out, it made you feel so special. And I think it was a triumph of video game design as much as anything else that we're trying to achieve. And that's why it's a game that I've purchased many, many times. And even though, like, when I first got my PC, I was like, right, time to get Portal 2, because it hasn't been remastered for consoles or anything like that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm willing to spend like the £20 it was on Steam. And then 2 weeks later, it was available for 20 pence. And I was like, oh, well, never mind. I'm happy to give them my money on this one.
This is the part where he kills you is one of the funniest jokes in video games.
Yes.
Because it just pulls in everything. Dialogue, chapter, Steam achievements.
Mm-hmm.
I love Portals. Love it. I think personally, I was considering putting Portal in my list, so I feel like I can now take that off, let Portal 2 have its moment. But wow, just both games are stunning, and totally 100% back it being in this list.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we like the games that make us feel special and smart.
Oh, yeah. I think this is the first game that either of you brought up that I've played.
There you go. It's one you don't have to add to the list.
I love that for this list.
Yay!
We should do the co-op level sometime.
There you go. Amy,
wait,
give it a
hang
whirl,
on.
girl.
You've not played A Link to the Past or Link's Awakening?
No.
Not yet.
Oh my
I've
goodness.
never owned a handheld apart from the PS Vita. Yeah, so.
Let's continue.
To be fair, my first Nintendo system outside of having a Game Boy in the 90s was the Switch. So there are many, many titles that I was catching up on, including Mario. It was just a thing that just passed my consciousness.
My first Zelda would have been Ocarina of Time. I didn't play it. I was just in the room for the entire game. The first one
Not a bad place to start.
I actually played was Wind Waker.
Again, not a bad place to start when it comes to Zelda.
Yeah, really true. I think I'm just jealous of you getting to experience these games. So
my favorite Zelda is Majora's Mask.
It's a very good choice.
Just a little bit of bouncing around the timeline there, but I'm about to light a stick of dynamite anyway, and throw it in the middle of all of this. with my next choice, which came out in 2010. But definitely my favorite RPG of all time. Definitely one of my favorite games of all time. Fallout New Vegas.
Hey,
The reason I've been mad at Bethesda for 14 years.
a fire that has not diminished, not 1 iota.
It has not. It has gotten brighter. No, like I just want to focus in. Like, I mean, I love everything about Fallout New Vegas. You know, I did play it a little bit after launch because I was burned out on the previous game. So it was one of those things where I was like, I'm not ready for Fallout yet. And I played it on Xbox, and that was a hard. I don't like playing these games on consoles. I ended up returning it and then playing it on PC like much later. But like for one, like there's one specific reason why it stands out, and that is it was around about the time when like choices in video games were like the next big thing. Like everybody was like, "Oh, these choices and." You can be an evil person, and you can be a good person. And I have a lot to say about morality in video games, which is coming in a video. So I won't bore you with the thousands upon thousands of words that I've written on the subject in this podcast. But what I liked about Fallout New Vegas that I didn't like about a lot of other games, choice-based mechanics, was that like it presented tough choices in a way that like they removed the, for want of a better term, Mass Effect's blue and red choices, where it was like, do you want to be the good person or do you want to be the bad person? Whereas this was like, hey, all of these options suck, but they suck in different ways. Which one do you want? And I felt like I was actually having my morality challenged a little bit.
Yeah, there's some agency about it.
Yeah, it was just, and then like, you know, like the design of like the quests and like Fallout 3 had was probably a more fun world to explore than Fallout New Vegas, but Fallout New Vegas pointed you in all of the right directions, and it is a game that I prefer, but I'm not and I don't like Fallout 3, but and there's the stick of dynamite I've just thrown into the middle of this podcast.
I mean,
I get why people like would prefer Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas. They are like, considering they're from the same series and they came out within 2 years of each other, they're like night and day.
I do feel like there's a bit of a meme, isn't there, about trans women and Fallout. But I seem to gravitate, or at least the meme says they all seem to gravitate more towards New Vegas than Fallout 3. And I feel a little bit like I betray my kin by being a Fallout 3 fangirl. But it was one of the contenders for my list. It makes me unique. But Fallout 3 would have been one of the contenders for my list. And I think it's just preference of choice with New Vegas or Fallout 3. They're both great games.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally get it. Totally get it.
Fallout 3, not to spin this around into like me talking about something I don't like Fallout 3 isn't a bad game. It's just a game that I don't vibe with. Like,
yeah, and I can totally, and that's how I feel about New Vegas.
Yeah.
It's just a game I don't vibe with, but I can tell it's a really good video game. It's funny.
Yeah, they have completely different design philosophies, which is again, I find the contrast of the two games really fascinating. But New Vegas is one of my favorite RPG experiences of all time. And it made me feel not crazy for thinking that like all of the choice-based mechanics in all these games that were coming out at the same time that people were raving about, and I was going, but they're bad, but they're not very good. Why is everybody? What's happening? And then Fallout New Vegas made me feel slightly more sane.
Amazing.
So yeah, for that reason, it was a very impactful game on me. I guess it brought me back to sanity.
I'm glad it was there for you.
Yeah. Thumbs up.
There you
Thanks
go.
for that, New Vegas.
So Sadie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have two choices that I'm certain of, and it's good that we're going through this list because I'm able to kind of tick off some of the ones. I think it's more interesting for me to not talk about, maybe Fallout 3 is one of my examples. So I can go to my certain ones. We've not mentioned the series yet. I think we're going back to 2009, or even maybe like 10 when it came to Europe, North America, by a little known studio at that time called From Software, who have gone on to slightly bigger things. And we are talking about Dark Souls. It might be 2011 that I'm thinking it might be come out 2010, but anyway. So I used to do a little podcast called Big Red Potion, and I remember there was I used to do it with some American guys, people like Jeffrey Matleff and Brad Galloway and Eddie Inzate.
Wait.
And
Somebody called Jeff. Oh, don't know about
yeah, I
this.
know. I know.
Is rising.
He's a Jeffrey, if you can take that. But anyway,
I'll allow it.
so okay, so there was a thing that was happening, especially with American game journalists around the time, where a lot of them were going, "Hey, do you know this game Dark Souls that is, didn't do that well in Japan, but it's pretty freaking cool." And I was like, "Yeah, sounds really bad." And then eventually they persuaded me to play it, and it came, I think, via Atlas to the UK in this weird box that had a manual that was bigger than most books that I owned. I was over egging it, but it was a chunky manual because it basically was a guide to play through the game from start to finish. I think they called it a guide rather than manual, but it felt somewhere in between the two to me. But anyway, my God, I've never been more impressed by a game on a first instance. Just between Demon Souls, sorry, I'm talking about Demon Souls and getting Dark Souls mixed up, but Demon Souls gave me that kind of first, amazed impression. And then moving to Dark Souls, and they turn it into this open world that is just insane. I think the reason why that resonates with me, just trying to, again, a lot of the games I picked, I try to sort of take a step back from and think of from a kind of design perspective, even though I don't have any experience in that. But I like the idea of sort of thinking about how a game's designed and thinking about this Dark Souls world where these bits somehow interconnect across this weird vertical axis as well as the horizontal axis. And it is I remember this, I described it when I reviewed it, I think, a bit like a giant house full of evilness and traps and things. It's not like Crackdown, for example, where you have buildings and you only get to play on the roofs of them. You get to be inside those buildings and go in every room in those buildings, and in each room there's something weird and wonderful that's going to kill you. That's what really resonates with me, Dark Souls. I don't need to talk too much about it. It's one of the most famous series now in games. But I think it's probably the most unique game that I love, even though it's now become its own genre. But at the time, there was nothing like it. And I guess as well, as an old school gamer, it was old school gaming, even though it maybe wasn't a cool way to describe it, but ultimately it was played like the games that I played when I grew up. And I loved it for that. I loved that it was unashamed in what it was. It was another one of those games where I was like, at the end of it, that was really cool. I wish I'd made it. And I love that game.
Damn, I wish I thought of this.
Yeah, exactly, right? All these talented designers who actually have qualifications and knowledge, damn them. But I just an incredible video game.
I love that pick. Yeah, so for me the whole FromSoft and Soulsborne thing, I jumped in with Elden Ring, and I happened to complete Elden Ring. I became an Elden Lord. I'm still not sure exactly what an Elden Lord is expected to do or their duties or anything like that, but apparently I'm one of those now. But yeah, so I love that so I've watched Let's Plays of Dark Souls and Demon Souls as well, and the thing that impresses me the most not only is the punishing of difficulty and what the game expects of you in terms of, okay, you need to be at this standard, and you need to know these systems in and out, and you need to recognize that any one of these enemies can mess your day up, and they're going to feel good about it too. But the thing that got me the most is the quote unquote levolution in the way that the environment shifted and shortcuts will open, or you'll work your way through an environment and you'll be like, oh, I'm back here. It's like this open hub world kind of thing. And that was
Fly Town again.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to accept the premise that these are some of the best games ever made, and it's one of these where it doesn't necessarily have to be for anyone, but it doesn't make it any less special.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way of describing it, and yeah, you know, um, Dark Souls when I was still like writing about games. So I remember going to EGX, which was a very small thing back at that time, and getting given a very cool sort of press copy of Dark Souls. It had a like little Dark Souls lighter in it and everything. But the big point being that I got to play the game before it launched. So it didn't have any of the kind of like messages on the floor
Yeah.
where you could get help to go. So I was working out what to do in that game all on my own sim. And so, like, I remember going through a lot of that game and finding things and having no idea that if you hit this little bit of a tree right here, oh, there's a whole freaking world behind this tree.
Yes.
Like, there's literally 10 hours of content behind this stupid freaking tree. No one told me that. There wasn't anything in the press book about that. So,
Oh, there's a bonfire behind this wall. Like, God damn it, Dark Souls.
Yeah, illusionary walls, well, I'll get you.
like, just again, it's one of those games where I just take a step back and go, like, that was made back in 2010. Like, it's just unbelievable that it was A, made, and B, super successful. And like, Vitz, you're talking about Elden Ring, like how many game copies that sold. It's crazy how that series has gone. It's amazing. And it would have to be on this list for me. It's one of my, I think for me, it's probably a game that a lot of people would associate with me. So it has to go on this list.
Absolutely. I think the breadth of that team and what they're able to achieve, and it's even, we have titles like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and how that team can then pivot to delivering Armored Core a year after Elden Ring came out, and it's mind blowing. It's I don't think there's any like A and B teams in that studio, but it's just everybody is world class.
I would be amazed if there's any kind of structure whatsoever. Like, if they're not just all bouncing off the walls and somehow a game gets made at the end of it.
I like the idea of someone just going, yes, make it more difficult, go back and do it again.
This is good, but also, could you just there we go, turn it up to 25? Great, thanks.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, that's my choice. I'll hand it over to you, Vitz.
Thank you very much. This one came out in 2017. However, where it resonates with me most is during pandemic times. And this is a little game by Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This is a game which resonates with me on a number of levels. One, it's Amy, to your point about communicating with your friends and staying in touch. There were many a nights where our friends and I would jump online and we would race, and it's one of the few games that I would say I'm competent at. So I'm not saying I'm the best or the fastest or anything like that, but I win more than I lose, kind of thing, and that's a rare thing for me. But the other thing, which is kind of more on a base level for me, the movie Speed Racer, not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination. Has so many different visual styles, and it just looks like a cartoon has thrown up on a cinema screen in all the bad ways. However,
Wow.
as a fan of this is going to be a tangent, but we're going to get there. Don't stay with me, everybody. So, as a fan of motorsport and motor racing, many movies commit the cardinal sin of committing crimes against motorsport, whether not realistic or anything like that. Speed Racer doesn't even bother about that. It says, what is the coolest thing we can put on this screen? And at any given point when it comes to the action pieces. And that's what Speed Racer is. Mario Kart 8 is the closest that I've got to within video games that feels like Speed Racer, including the Speed Racer video game that came out for the Wii in like 2009. This game allows me to get in such of a flow state when it comes to just being able to drift and dance the car all the way through the different levels and the verticality they start including with some of the DLC that they've introduced recently with some of the new tracks. It's there's something special there, and again, it's going back to the iconic themes as well. It comes to the Rainbow Road, especially the N64 version and things like that. And Mario Kart 8 will always be special to me, and it's one that will remind me of the time that this is one of the titles that got me through the pandemic with the community that our friends and I was able to come around and play this game, and and how it's the most Speed Racer game ever, and it's why I love it.
I think that might be the first time Mario Kart 8 has ever been described as the most speed racer game of all time.
There you go. If it's a unique take, I'll be proud to rock that one.
Hey, Nintendo, put that on the box art, Mario Kart 9.
Mm-hmm.
Review caught the most speed racer ass game ever.
Yeah. Also, if you can release that this year, that'd be really good because I picked it in another fantasy league that I was doing. Got unannounced Mario Kart title coming out this year.
Bad idea.
Did you imagine? The big thing is that, like, do Nintendo even need to do? That's the thing,
Oh,
right?
no.
Like, they just don't.
And to Amy's point that we were discussing on a previous podcast that might come out next week, time is a flat circle. Mario Kart 9 would launch with less content than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has. Like, how do you even do that kind of thing?
That's crazy. So one of the games I was considering putting on the list was Super Mario Kart. I'm not going to now. Mario Kart 8, I still play. And I had the same thing as you, Vitz. I played it through the pandemic with friends. I still play with that same group of friends. The number when we load up, you go into the versus screen, and you see the number of how many you've beaten your friend, and that number is getting scarily big now. In terms of both of us have played this many games of Mario Kart against each other. What a game! What a series, and Mario Kart 8 is even if I don't think it might be the best personally, I would say Super Mario Kart, just for its purity, is the best one for me. But in terms of the most complete, brilliant, it's Super Mario, it's Mario Kart 8.
I tried to go back to Super Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch Online bit that they have. I don't know what it is, but it makes me exceedingly motion sick. Whether it's the way that that game the environment scroll as they come towards you as you're driving your car, and it feels like you're moving your character across the map as opposed to controlling a vehicle, for a better term, kind of thing. I don't know what it is, but it makes me exceedingly motion sick. So I had to put that down.
It's from that era of SNES where 3D wasn't quite 3D, right? So it's very different. But yeah, it would have been on my list just because I probably put 7 billion hours into it, so it would have been rude.
Cool.
Amy, give it a whirl, girl.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to break the time-space continuum and rope somebody else on this podcast into this next one, I guess, which I didn't realize until I was actually reading it back. So I'm going to talk about a game that came out in 2017 from the vantage point of 2016. I'm going backwards, not forwards. So there's many people watching this podcast might know that I'm a bit of a content creator, and I have been for a while. So we're into my content creation phase right now. And there was a point in time where I was actually like a reviewer and a coverage person, I guess, like for myself, for other sites, for other people's podcasts. Yeah, I don't know why other people let me on their podcasts either, but they did, and that's their loss, I suppose. But the first time I ever went through like what I would consider the full run of coverage, previews, interviews, reviewing the game before it came out was Sniper Elite 4.
Oh,
more shooting people in the face.
wow.
Actually shooting them in the nuts.
Okay, yeah, with the super slow mo and the bullet going. Yeah,
I was enabled on this journey.
That is a sniper bullet to my crotch area. I was not expecting that, Amy.
Sorry, I wrote the list and then I realized afterwards I was like, wait, all of this is So I was enabled on this journey by Sadie, who was doing PR at the time, and I went to EGX and I got invited to go and play the game and interview the developers, and then I got a review code later the next year. And like I did a few like press things and interview things and that year at EGX, and then I did it again later. But like that one always sticks out in my mind because one, it was the first AAA game I'd ever done that for, which was fucking wild. To me, that people were letting me like talk to these devs and play this game. But then also like
what was I thinking?
I know, right? Like I don't know what the fuck you were thinking, like, but you weren't the only one. I did the same thing for Mass Effect Andromeda, but in terms of like Sniper Elite 4, like it was the first sort of domino that fundamentally changed like so much about how I created. like the things that I created, like because I
Mm.
had that kind of access to like the game in an unfinished state, because I got to talk to actual developers, which I'd never really gotten to do before. It changed like how I did game critique, how I like saw like people who made games, how I stopped shit talking games for fun because I realized that people actually make them, and that's not a very nice thing to do. And like just all sorts of stuff like that. Like it's like set me on a completely different path to what I was probably on. Um, and and like yeah, like it gave me like confidence to talk to game devs. Like I went from like pre that EGX being like, like just play the demo and then leave to like after that EGX, I would just shoot the shit with people. Like, I didn't give a fuck who they were. Like, if they were like people who made games or whatever. And like I am where I am now in terms of the things that I focus on this podcast and on video essays. Like, I've got a video essay coming up about game credits, which is something like pre 2017 me would never have thought to make. But like I owe that to that little like start that I got from Sniper Elite 4, and so that's cool.
Hell yeah.
I love it, Amy. Obviously, I don't know. This might be better to add the context, I guess. But like, I was working at Rebellion doing the PR for that game. I was the only PR person at Rebellion, so that all those games that came out ended up me being the one who's working with people like Amy at the time and
Amazing.
others. And yeah, and it's just a very small part of a very big team and everyone else doing a much more important, bigger job. But the cool thing for me, and I could easily have put Sniper Elite 4 on my list from the opposite perspective of getting to do the PR for a game like that from start to finish. That was the first one, I think, at that studio, maybe Battlezone Virtual Reality, but that was like I guess one of the really very very big ones, where I got to be part of that journey from beginning to finish. Organizing press tours, putting out the press releases, looking at the reviews nervously on launch. I think it was the day before launch when we did the embargo, and we're hoping they're going to be good, and being like, amazed and overwhelmed with like a feeling of like achievement, even though I did absolutely freaking nothing. People designed that actual game, not me. But that game ended up being really successful. And Sniper Elite 5 gone on been even better review scores, and Rebellion is in a great state, and it's so nice to hear. I feel like that's journey for you, Amy, but also like just to have been a part of it, and it's so nice to hear that. And I was not expecting it on this list, so that's awesome.
That's really special.
Yeah, I thought about warning you, and then I thought, it'll be funnier if I don't. Also, I should. The thing I didn't mention, it's also a good game.
Yeah, I didn't actually like it, but it's on the list.
Yeah, it sucked, but no, it really didn't.
Amy's
It
like,
was really fun.
this is the title that created the monster you see before.
This is the title, for better or worse, that led to this.
That's standard.
So my little Sniper Elite 4 anecdote. There's one of the trailers. I got to kind of not write the script, but like come up with a kind of concept for and proofread, and the whole end of this trailer was like, and this was one of the few things that I can go. This was my idea, but I'm like, hey, why don't we just reveal Hitler at the end of it? And it's one of those amazing things where I just think back. I was working at studio and like that was a legitimate thing where you could say like, hey, did we just put Hitler at the end of this trailer? I still look back on that trailer fondly and laugh at this surprise reveal of Hitler at the end of it.
That's fair.
If that doesn't want to make you buy the game, then
you
I
can
know
shoot
what it says about your
Nazis in the
political
crotch,
beliefs.
and it goes into
That's
slow motion in an X-ray camera.
You can shoot Hitler in the nuts, not just Nazis.
And then reload the level and do it all over again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not sure how to follow that, Amy.
Sorry.
Yeah, tough one. That's tougher than Legend of Zelda or anything. I'm gonna go the only one I'm certain of, but I'm not even certain of this one actually, honestly. But we talked a lot about RPGs. We talked about Final Fantasy. It's not the only JRPG series in town. In fact, you can look to one that this series that I'm about to talk to you about and say it's absolutely up there in terms of its regard in the West and its status these days. I'm not going to talk about Persona 5 though. I'm not going to talk about Persona 3 Reload or any Persona 3 games or Persona 5 games. I'm focusing on Persona 4, Persona 4 Golden in particular, which is how I played it on the Vita. And I really think that's important that it was, for me and the Vita. This game is special. It's very fun. It's very well made. Its RPG systems are brilliant, but in terms of characters and its story, having this story around high schoolers who outwardly come across as very single layer, stereotypical. This is the guy has a bad luck with girls, and this is the sporty girl, and this is the pretty girl who works hard for her family, and then the game just peels back these layers and just shows you that there's like this dark side in all these people, the thoughts that they have. To actually voice some of these thoughts, that they kind of wish that their friends would die, and they kind of, just background little ideas like, I hate every single person in the world and I wish they were all dead. Really dark thoughts, can even maybe quite clumsily confronting, sexuality. It was clumsy, it's not perfect, but it tried, and for a Japanese game, that's very big. To even negotiate that kind of thing, especially an RPG like that. But I just think the characterization and how at the end of it you get privy to these incredibly dark thoughts of these people who are just still growing up, and at the end of it you feel like you've made this great group of friends with people who you've heard say the horriblest, worst things. It's special. It's a great game, and it's one of those games that I just every so often now, every 1 or 2 years, will think, I want to go sink another 100 hours into Persona 4. And that's the kind of games that I really resonate with. Is one where I have that thought. All these games in this list, every single one I've mentioned, I have that thought that I'd quite like to just go back and play this game again from start to finish and relive those memories. So, Persona 4 Gold.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that one's on the list as well, I think. I'm doing Royal, and then we'll see where I end up. I mean, it's literally on the spreadsheet. It's near the top because it's one of the longer games.
A lot of people will say Persona 5 is the better game. It's definitely the more stylish. The RPG systems are better. It looks better because it's newer. I just don't think it has the characters like Persona 4 does. And for me, you come away wanting to be the game, again, spoilery, but the game, very light ending, but the game ends with you leaving the area that you are visiting, and you are on that train going away from it, and you don't want to go. You don't want the game to end. You want to keep having adventures with these people. It's and I not saying that in a kind of like throwaway way. I've never felt that kind of emotion. Even like the game I just talked about, Final Fantasy X, a little while ago. I wanted that game to end because it was too freaking painful. This one I didn't want to end. I wanted more of it. I wanted it to keep going, and that's the best compliment I can pay it.
That's a really good compliment for any game.
Yeah.
When you've sunk that amount of time into something and you still want to keep going, like.
Absolutely.
And you do it all over again as well. That's a brilliant thing.
Yeah. So that's Persona 4 Golden. Vitz, and
great stuff. So we're going back, or we're staying in 2017. If you're keeping up to date with where our list is going, it's a Sony first-party title, another one. But this one is a little bit different. So this one is Uncharted Lost Legacy. So I'm a fan of the Uncharted games. However, Nate Drake is a terrible human being.
Have you ever heard of ludonarrative dissonance?
Yeah. And
he's so charming.
Elena can and probably knows she could do a whole lot better than this man, but for some reason chooses to stay with him anyway. But Lost Legacy is one of the titles where I believe originally it was intended to be DLC for Uncharted 4, but then evolved into its own title and stars Chloe Fraser and Nadine, and it's primarily set in India. Which is where I was born here in the UK, but a lot of my family hail from there kind of thing. And it was so special to see a mainstream title dive into India and that culture, and to delve into the mythology of Hinduism. And yeah, it is such an amazing game, and naturally it takes a lot of the elements and the mechanics from Uncharted 4. In a lot of ways, it's refining. It cuts out a lot of the fat, and I think it still makes for it's a better experience. Obviously, I think Uncharted 4 has more bombastic inset pieces and what have you, but I think from an emotional storytelling point of view of Chloe and the journey that she goes on, and just the opening, how it opens up in the market and you see the little girl, and how India is all about commerce and it's always business, and it completely picks up on that vibe, and where that story goes and how it relates to obviously Chloe and her family and what they did beforehand. It is such a special title, and it kind of brought me closer to my culture, and I think that's probably one of the best things you can say for it. And it is still a beautifully stunning game to look at and to go through, and it's one of these that I'll go back to every couple of years or so just to experience and to be in that world. I don't think we'll see characters like Nadine Ross again, especially voiced by Laura Bailey. I think there's a bit of a hubbub about Laura Bailey and their ethnicity, playing someone who is of South African descent and things like that. And Claudia Black absolutely killed it as a role of Chloe, as she always does, kind of thing. But yeah, if you haven't checked that out because you may have considered, oh, it's just a spin-off title, it doesn't really count, then I would ask you to correct your ways and go back to it.
I feel very called out. I love Uncharted series. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, this is my time to feel that now, Amy. So yeah, like I love the Uncharted series. Uncharted 2 wouldn't make this list for me, but I think is one of the potentially one of the best games of all time. Again,
Yeah.
I played a bit of Lost Legacy, and I bounced off it. I just don't know why it didn't connect. But listening to you, Vitz, I'm like, I need to go back and give it a fair shake. I didn't give it a fair shake. I just bounced off it and went, yeah, it's DLC kind of game. I'm not good. Maybe I'll come back to it at some point. But I know a lot of people say this is their favorite Uncharted entry. And to hear you sort of speak about how it's speaking to you really personally in terms of your heritage and culture, that's something I think I didn't even give the game a chance to kind of show me. And so, yeah, call that out. Fair D's. I'll go back to that game. Thank you for giving me a chance to give it another go.
Gotcha. Yeah, it wasn't my intention to tackle you personally, but I'm glad that you're going to give it a chance.
Every pick in this round has just been personally directed at our guests.
No, I think a lot of the reticence towards that game is the proximity it came out to Uncharted 4 as well, and I think there was a lot of appetite for. Okay, this was brilliant. I'd love one of these experiences every couple of years or so. Obviously, the team at Naughty Dog had different ideas about what the direction they wanted to take the franchise, and I think it's good that they put it on ice after Lost Legacy, after the events of Uncharted 4 at least, anyway. Yeah. But yeah, it's such a special gem, and the remaster on PlayStation 5 is part of the Legacy of Thieves collection, I want to say. Yeah, it's a really, really decent port of it.
I think it's if you're a PlayStation Plus Extra user, I think it might be available via that catalog. Or if not, it was a previous PlayStation Plus title, and you might have it in your. I can't remember. It's one of those two.
Yeah, and even if you have the PlayStation 4 disc, I think it's a $10 upgrade to the PS5 version anyway. So yeah, the barrier is relatively low.
Excellent.
I would just very quickly say the reason I bounced off it, and I wonder if this is for other people too, is that the open world kind of side of it didn't quite gel with me. There's a little area where you are essentially in that
in Western Ghats.
Yeah, and I just didn't connect, but I didn't give it the chance to really flourish. So yeah, I want to go to Uncharted, and I feel like this is the time. So I'm on board.
I feel like I've been sold on a lot of games tonight. I hate to do
Amy,
this.
the baton has been passed to you, my friend.
Well, I hate to do this, but because I'm really enjoying this conversation, but we're more or less out of time, and we haven't made it through our entire list. So
Should we quick fire?
I have a proposition.
Okay.
Instead of quick firing and not giving the rest of our lists the space that they deserve, because I think we've had some truly spectacular conversations about some truly fantastic games. I've loved every minute of this podcast. What if we put a pin in it for now, and we'll set a date to come back and finish this off.
Oh, I'm down.
In another podcast, we'll tell Moody go play Football Manager and pet his dog or whatever, and we'll come back and we'll do this again. Like, finish these lists off, and then if we have time, just shoot the shit about other games that we really love. Because because we've all got what three left.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't want to just rapid fire go through that when like the conversations that we've had have been so like fantastic so far, and I imagine those 9 games are also going to generate really fantastic conversations.
Yeah, I will admit I said the rapid fire as a kind of trigger to you because that's what Jeff Keighley did at the Game Awards. So I just wanted to see if you bite, but credit to you didn't.
No, I am waiting for you to write wrap it up please on your wall behind you, just to really set me off.
You know, digital background's coming next week. Video viewers.
But no, like, how does everyone feel about like maybe in a few weeks, just like coming back together and doing the rest of this properly?
This has been the most fun. I'm happy to do this all day, every day.
Yeah, definitely. It gives me the opportunity to actually pick those 3 last games because I haven't yet.
Well, Vitz, you're not allowed to say no, you work here, but
there you
go. Cool. So we'll definitely do that then. And I like, even as you were both talking about those games, I was looking at the clock and I was going, what do I do? I was like, I don't want to stop this conversation, but I have to. I have to be the responsible podcast host.
She's being mum. She's being the good mum.
Yeah. Look, we've got McDonald's at home.
Okay.
But
Sadie, can I just say this has been the most wonderful evening, and it's been a pleasure to meet you and get to know you and to go through some of your most cherished games. And I'm very much looking forward to doing this again.
Oh, absolutely. Likewise for both of you. It's been lovely to get to know you. But I always think talking about games is the best way to get to know somebody.
Hell yes.
And I've just had a really great time, and I very much would be happy to do the remainder of this, and maybe in those intervening weeks I'll pick some games.
Or just wing it. Just wing it. You never know what'll come out when you just swing it. So normally Moody would close off the podcast with some words of positivity. So I guess I'll try and give it a go. It's like I've had such a fun time talking, like, in the conversations that we've had tonight. And I guess what I really want to say is, Moody, this is what happens when you go on holiday. No. How'd I do?
So hard.
I think you nailed it.
Excellent.
Pure optimism.
Well, I don't know what he usually says. Punch the sky.
He usually says, "You're awesome and you're deserving of awesome things, and make awesome things happen for you." And he says "awesome" or "amazing" many different times. I would like to add to that and just say, be sure to take care of yourself out there, friends. It's a challenging time in the world in general and in the video game industry. Reach out to those who have been affected by the dark times, and know that it's never too late to reach out to your friends, regardless of if it's been months or years since you've spoken to them and you've just lost each other through the vastness of the pandemic or the world that it is today. Just reach out to them, and I guarantee you that they will reach that handout back to you as well, because friends is what's going to get us through all this.
And you can do that via the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, which has 3 expansions all the way up to Stormblood. You can play up to level 70 for free. I should do PR for Square Enix.
Yes.
I do it for Konami. I should say, hey, you can also do that for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. Please play the games that I work on. Thank you. And the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. Okay, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.